Nikihet hawezi kusahaulika.
You naughty girl. Just chunga sijachunga kajua kweli.
Hakika kabisa na yale ambao unaniambia saizi.
Unadhani mimi naweza kudanganya kwa hilo?
Una hakika nikiingia akilini mwako sitaona lolote?
Ama kweli wewe ni damu yangu?
Kwani uko na tashwishi na hilo?
Alafu onaje? Hii nyumba yote itakuwa yetu.
Naona laana babangu ishakuingia wewe.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
I want you to promise that you'll return the land that your father stole from me to build his hotel.
I'm not going anywhere. You and I need to talk.
No!
If I lose my son because of your foolish pride, you'll definitely lose me too. And I mean it.
Let me see it.
This is none of your business.
No,
Get your
I need
hands
to
off
see
this.
what this is. Why are you hiding it from me?
If you try to hurt me or my mother again, we'll deliver what's in that safe to the police. Is that clear?
I will never stop loving you. And do you know why?
Why?
Because you're the father I never had.
Lying heart. Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Take my love.
I wanna spend all my money on you. Show you some love, cause I want to. You don't call anymore, cause I'm so fucking about you. Have you found somebody new? I guess the rumors are true, but you don't call anymore.
All right.
It is indeed the 8th day of February 2022. Good morning. This is KBC News Check. Glad you could make time. My name is Njue. Lensa Odingo will be a sign language interpreter for this live show. And for the next 2 hours or so, we'll be looking at what has been shaping up politics of the country. And also, we do remember on Friday, we did commemorate the World Cancer Day with the theme to closing the gap. And on that note still, the head of state today will be officially launching a cancer center at the Coastal Provincial General Hospital. That is also, we'll be making and we'll be shaping up our conversation in the second hour of this live show. Thank you so much for making time. Remember, you can be part of this broadcast through our social media platform. We are live. And talking about politics, a lot has happened in the last couple of days. Perhaps we could start with yesterday's president launching the UHC, that is the Universal Health Care. Of course, a lot of discussion around it on what Kenyans are bound to benefit from, and also looking at IEBC. On Sunday was the last day for the second phase of the mass voter registration. But looking at the statistics themselves, they had targeted around 4.5 million people, but they ended up with 1 million people. What are some of the problems that have cropped up in the registration exercise? ID, young people talking about we do not have the IDs, others talking about I don't see the need for voting because there is no change, but we will be discussing that too as well. Plus, today is a very instrumental day, and especially for you who you're seeking an elective post if you are a civil servant, because today is the last day that you're supposed to be working for the government beginning tomorrow, 9th of February. All civil servants who want to vie for any elective positions are supposed to have resigned by end of today or by close of business today. That is something also we are going to be looking at. And talking about the president, also the Jubilee Party did have a meeting at State House last week where the head of state did talk about February 25th and 26th. They're supposed to be holding their NDG, that is National Delegates Conference. And there will be more or less what we would call Jubilee housekeeping. A lot of people have left, a lot of things have happened. Jubilee is having a dalliance with other parties. We will also be looking at that. But my panel today, on my immediate left, we have Michael Mungai, who is a political economist. And on my extreme left, we have Wambui Shadrach, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Perhaps to begin with something that also formed news yesterday, where you, together with other lawyers, including Danstan Omari and other lawyers, you're seeking to have a relook at the office of the Ombudsman. Kindly share something on that before we plunge into politics. We had that petition in court yesterday.
Yes, thank you,
and
Ben.
were you also given orders?
Thank you, Ben, for having me today. Now, you will recall last year there was a lot of push from different petitioners who wanted the removal of the DPP from office. So Mr. Rubia happened to be one of the people who had filed seeking the removal of the DPP from his office. I mean, it's now public knowledge that the court has since stopped that process. We are waiting for the motions to proceed. Tomorrow we'll be appearing before the learned Justice Mrima for the hearing of another application. But alongside that, other than Mr. Rubia seeking the removal of the DPP from office, he called to question a number of what he calls misdeeds that are happening, or evils that are happening in the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, that will require an inquiry from the office of the Ombudsman or the office of the Administrative Justice, so that some of the injustices that some of the staff are facing in the office of the ODPP are investigated with a view of finding solutions for them. Some of the complaints that have arisen, including issues of maladministration, there are issues about irregular promotions, favorism in that office, so that these issues were highlighted to the office of the Ombudsman by Mr. Rubia with a view of provoking them to investigating the same. Unfortunately, since the month of November last year, 2021, to this minute, we are in the second month of the month of February 2022. I mean, there has not been any action or communication from the office of the Ombudsman. And now that has provoked his initial instructions to us to move to court and seek for orders that are called mandamas. Orders of mandamas are historical orders that are meant to force public officers to do that which they are supposed to do in law. So that if we have a public officer with a responsibility like the Ombudsman, who has the responsibility of investigating state officers, and he fails to do so, the courts are there to ensure that by issuing what is called judicial review orders, which are orders that are historically, we borrowed them from the practice in America, where the president was at some time forced to do something by law through the orders of the court after he had failed to do so. So that is basically what we have taken to before court. The directions are yet to be issued in the matter. We will be waiting for the wisdom or Solomonic wisdom, as it is, from our learned judges, so that they can tell us what will become of the liturgy, the snail speed in which the office of the Ombudsman has resolved to addressing this issue, which is it's a public issue. I mean, if the Director of Public Prosecution, Mr. Nuruddin Haji, is charged with the responsibility of dispensing powers that are given by the Constitution, which powers are actually borrowed from the people.
Yes.
So in a sense, he's exercising indirect powers from the people, and he's being paid by the people. If there are questions as to the manner in which he's operating his office, I mean, it is the right thing to do to ask the office of the Ombudsman to take action.
Okay.
Yes.
Of course, we cannot talk about it further because it's a matter you've already filed in court.
Indeed.
But still on the same light, every year we have an election, the economy is polarized. You are a political economist.
Yes.
And IEBC did talk about 8 months, 9 months before, 8 months before the general polls. You cannot conduct any harambes, not even for the church or for yourself, if you are vying. But how do they even the scores? You know, we have so many people who are very rich, yet they don't have any manifesto, but we have somebody else who have a good manifesto and a clear manifesto, but he cannot be shielded from the money laundering and the money that we're going to be seeing flying.
Thank you very much, Ben, for having me today.
Welcome.
Let me comment on that, and it's a very sad state for our country as such, because IEBC, as it is right now, it is a work in progress. As far as money matters are concerned, trust me, it is a work in progress. Why? Because the shortest way for you to get out of your money problems in Kenya, it has always been the political path. That is, once you get into politics, fishy business, black market, such things, you get a way out of there. As far as the politics and the conduction of election are concerned, I leave it to the IEBC. But on money matters, I think the laws that the IEBC has constituted as pertaining to each of the people who are there in the elections, they are not enough. They don't serve. They are not strong enough. Sometimes people call them draconian, but then they cannot be draconian. If, for example, you look at the system in the United States of America, we are looking at somebody like Barack Obama, not to say that he did not have money for himself, but then he had to raise money. And this money, once it is raised, it has a controlled way in which it is supposed to be done. Now, in Kenya, it is vice versa. The politician has the money, and he seems to be the one who is fundraising for each and every one of those. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that the IEBC should come up with a system of first, the kind of people who should go into politics. If they have that, then they can be able to control even the money that get into politics. But then if you cannot be able to control the personality, the questions of integrity, the questions on how looking into, we audit that person and look at what is the source of his wealth, how has he come, why is his interest in politics, then that is what even causes most of the leaders who are in our country not to be able to deliver. Because it is a case of somebody buying out a seat. They have their money, they give it to the people, go back, get back the money, and then it is a cycle like that one. So it is sad. It is sad, and I'm calling still on the IEBC to let them streamline their laws, especially on money matters.
And still on IEBC, and I'm quite sure now you can take a spin on this. The media reports, I remember, this is in regards to what transpired a couple of days ago, where now they're talking about there's a motion in Parliament that seeks to just eradicate the transmission of electronic transmission of results. But IEBC did talk about the media reports are erroneous, of course, and misrepresentation of the bill as tabled before Parliament. The bill does not propose an amendment to Section 44 of the Elections Act that provides for the deployment of an integrated elections management system for voter registration, voter identification, and result transmission. This is according to Gulie, who is Abdi Gulie, who is the commissioner of the IEBC. What exactly is contained in those laws, and why would we even go back to how we used to do things? Now everything we are doing is digital.
Ben, there is a sense in which when you listen to our politicians, when you listen to the IEBC commissioners, when you listen to some of the elites who come to the show to discuss about these election amendment acts and their effects, there is a sense in which you will feel a lot of confusion. And the public is actually immersed into a lot of confusion, and this is the confusion that sometimes results to the throwing of the baby with the bathwater. So one cannot begin this discussion if, number one, you have not first read the Election Amendment Act or Election Amendment Bill of 2022. You can also not participate in this discussion if you have not read and appreciated the Solomonic wisdom from the appellate court in the minor KI's case.
Yes.
You cannot also discuss on whether these amendments are justifiable, whether they are a clawback to what we have, without also understanding and reading the decision by Justice Chacha Mwita on the in the Katiba Institute case versus the AG of the year 2017. So when you read these decisions, you will remember that immediately after the annulment of the elections, or the presidential elections of the year 2017, on the 1st of September by Justice Maraga Emeritus and the other Supreme Court judges, with a dissenting opinion, of course, of Lady Justice Njoki, then there was a push from the Jubilee Party to have a relook at the Elections Act, especially on Section 39 and Section 83 that led to the invalidation of the elections, basically because the court took the approach that it is either the qualitative or the quantitative approach that you must satisfy. So once you understand that, and then you understand that there was a push in court, which resulted to a judgment by Justice Chacha Mwita, to invalidate some of the sections, especially the amendments on Section 83 and Section 39 on the Election Amendment Act. So once you understand that and you read the advice that the court gave, number one, you will appreciate that, yes, in as much as these amendments are belated, they come very late in the day. They come, I think it's a very few months to the election. In as much as they are belated in the manner they have been brought to us, they seek to address a certain concern. But even while they seek to address this concern, they are misunderstood. They misunderstand the rationale or the decision by Justice Chacha Mwita. Number one, the issue about the electronic transmission of the election.
Yes.
This is something that forms the heart of the decision by the Court of Appeal in the Minor Kiai's case. Of course, we appreciate it is important that we have an electronic transmission of the election. It protects us from our ills. We have, as a society, we cannot even trust ourselves. We always suspect ourselves of altering, tampering with elections because people take elections to be do or die. So the rationale behind the electronic transfer of the election was to help in, avoiding the temptation of the returning officers tinkering with the elections results.
So basically it's trying to fortify the laws that are there, not trying to change anything that was already there.
Yes, you see, this is really the point, Ben, that in as much as they want to do something good, they are mistaken. They are mistaken because the initial amendments, what they are trying to change, number one, was questioned before a competent court of law. There were recommendations, and there was an invalidation of those particular sections they are trying to amend. The invalidation was to the extent that some of the amendments were vague in nature. When you tell someone that if there is a difference between the results that have been transmitted and the results that have been announced at the polling station, then that in itself creates a confusion or a vagueness in its sense, because you expect what will be transmitted will be what will be announced. So you cannot tell us that after it has been transmitted and we have received, and that is what was initially announced, that we will go back again and tell the people that we are now, there is a confusion between what has been transmitted and what has been announced. So that is what the court said. This is a vagueness. And then on the issue of the broadcasting, the live streaming of the election
that has
results,
brought a lot of heat.
Yes, it has brought a lot of heat, and because largely it's because people do not understand the decision between the Minor Kiai, the Justice Chacha Mwita's decision in Katiba Institute.
Simplify for us.
Yes. Now to simplify it, and just to break it for the members of the public to understand, the court agreed there was the importance of live streaming of election results, largely because it ensures the verifiability of the elections, it ensures the accurateness of the election, and it also ensures the transparency of the elections, which are principles that you can find in Article 81 and 86 of the Constitution. So the only difficulty that the court had initially in invalidating that law that they are now seeking to amend is because the provision says, when you read further, that even after the live streaming of the elections, the elections that have been the results that have been live streamed cannot be used by the commission as a basis for the tally of the results. You see, that is the confusion.
That is vague.
Yes, that is the confusion that the court was trying to point out, because you are telling us that we should not be trusting what we are seeing on the screen. So what the court said is, we should be trusting what you are live streaming. And to that extent, to the extent that the law is telling us that the commission cannot use the broadcasted or live streamed results as a basis for the declaration of the winner or loser, then to that extent that was unconstitutional. So what we expected for these proponents of these amendments to be doing is to go and do the amendment and say that now we are benchmarking on the decision that was rendered by learned Justice Chacha Mwita, and we are saying that as far as the live streaming results are concerned, this one can be a basis for the declaration of the results. Because why would we be broadcasting things to the members of the public and yet we cannot rely on them?
Yes.
So to that extent, the amendment is misunderstood. It is now a repetition of the illegality that was there. Then there has been also the proposition that the commissioner, the chair of the commission cannot be the one who is declaring the presidential elections. That also it's unconstitutional in itself. You are telling us the commission as is constituted is the one that will be charged with the responsibility of declaring the winner or the presidential elect.
Isn't it very dangerous?
That is withdrawing the powers that we have given to the chair of the commission.
Yes.
The commission, when it comes to the presidential election, must be subordinate to the direction by the chair. So that if Chebukati stands and announces that X or Y is the presidential elect, we should be respecting that decision or that declaration.
Because he has power vested.
Yes, because he has that power.
And is it very dangerous to try and amend any elections act or the IEBC Act a few months to the election? Okay, hold the thought. Talking about votes, and you've talked about transparency in the voters and votes. We are joined in by Diego Ngugi Wilson, who is a governance expert. He has also been one of the senior county officials in the county of Tharaka. You have Tharaka Nidhi votes that where he was. And Ngugi, perhaps to welcome you with a spin. IEBC had targeted 4.5 million people, ended up with 1 million people. You will be seeking an elective seat, and some of your voters have not registered. Some have talked about IDs. As a politician, where do you sit?
Thank you, Ben, and I'm sorry for coming late. I want to say that the IEBC has not reached their target simply because of two things. One, Kenyans are tired of going to elections, electing their leaders, and nothing much changes. Number two, I still believe the central government, or rather the executive, has not done enough through their systems. That is from the chief, sub-chief, and the village elders. They've not done enough in terms of sensitization. People were not really pushed. We saw some adverts on media, but I don't think that was enough, because Kenya, most of Kenyans actually, they are not highly connected to the media, especially the mainstream media. So I think those were the two major reasons why the IEBC did not recruit enough, but we still have time. Yes, there are some people without IDs still. I think the ministry in charge of that, they are supposed to hurry up, and I hope that in the near future they are going to open up another time for registration of our voters. Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps you can take us, before you can take a spin on that, the head of state is, of course, today opening up the cancer center in Mombasa. We have a reporter, Njue Karisa, who is on standby to give us the latest as we wait for the head of state. Remember, yesterday he did launch the UHC, the Universal Health Coverage, as part of the Big Four agenda. Njue, what's the latest?
Good morning. We're coming to you live from the Coast General Hospital, where President Uhuru Kenyatta is continuing his second day official visit here in Mombasa County. He is here to realize his commitment of the universal health coverage, and which is in line with the Big Four agenda, his manifesto to Kenyans before he leaves office. And today he will be opening or commissioning this regional cancer center that is very instrumental and very important for the region and the patients that are seeking assistance in this particular region. So President Uhuru Kenyatta is just around the corner, and we are expecting him to arrive in a matter of minutes. Just to give you a quick statistics, is that annually 6,500 people visit the Coast General Hospital. These are cancer patients. 640 of those cases are new cases, and of course they come here for treatment. What has been happening is that most of these patients are usually referred to the Kenyatta National Hospital because Mombasa County has no facilities of radiotherapy or chemotherapy to assess these patients. But today, this is a revolution for the residents here, as this facility has been equipped with the necessary radiotherapy devices. So the full spectrum of the cancer patients can be found in this particular facility. And of course, this is a new dawn for the residents of Mombasa and the region as a whole. So President Uhuru Kenyatta is just around the corner. But before that, let me engage some of the leaders from this area. Let me start with Rabbi, Member of Parliament, Mheshimiwa Kamoti, just to tell us, karibu tu sana, tuambia maendeleo kama haya kuanzia jana. Rais yuko kila mahali tu kuona kwamba hapa katika kaunti ya Mombasa na eneo jumla la pwani watu wameweza maendeleo yameweza kufika. Mwalipokeleaje swala hili?
Nikiwa kama kiongozi wa eneo hili la pwani na Warabai, mimi nataka nimshukuru rais kwa hiki kitengo cha kansa. Ukweli ni kwamba tumepoteza watu wengi, hasa ndani ya Rabai, watu ambao wangeokolewa maisha, lakini kwa sababu hii saratani ina stages mingi, mara nyingi mpaka mtu apimwe, akatwe nani yake, ipelekwe kama ni Kenyatta Hospital, by the time inarudi hapa naambiwe ana kansa, ile kansa imespread. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru sana kwamba tuko na hii center hapa, na hapa hata ukienda Coast General utakuta percentage kubwa ya wagonjwa wanalazwa pale, wengi wametoka Rabai, Kaloleni. Kwa hivyo hii itasaidia sana watu wetu na itafanya saratani igunduliwe kwa mapema na iweze kutibika. Manake huu ni ugonjwa ambao ukichelewa kutibiwa, mtu anakuwa inafika stage ya kwamba hawezi kutibika tena, umespread. Mimi nina imani kwamba wananchi, na tunaenda kuambia wananchi, mtu akiona sitofahamu ya mwili wake akimbie hapa, apimwe, iweze kugundulika mapema, ndio tusipoteze maisha kama vile tumekuwa tukipoteza. Otherwise tunashukuru sana kwa sababu imetutoa ile wasiwasi ya kwamba ukiambiwa ana kansa unafikiria Nairobi atakaa wapi, ni kina nani watamwangalia, hata akienda Kenyatta Hospital ni lazima awe na mahali. Lakini hayo yote sasa baada ya jengo hili kufunguliwa, nafikiria rais atakuwa ametuondolea stress kubwa sisi wakaazi wa Rabai, wakaazi wa pwani, kwa sababu hatuna haja ya kwenda huko mbali. Kwa hivyo ni kitu ambacho tunashukuru sana.
Naam, kilele cha awamu ya uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kinaenda kumalizika. Je, munaona kwamba kama eneo jumla kwa la pwani mumeweza kuangaliwa matakwa yenu kikamilifu?
Mimi hata bunge nimezungumza kwamba mgala muue na haki yake umpe. Ukweli pwani na hasa Mombasa haiko vile ilikuwa kabla ya rais. Angalia mabarabara. Haya mabarabara tuko nayo hapa, na hata ukienda Kisumu uende wapi, kule kwengine ndio tulijivunia kwamba kulikuwa na Thika Highway, lakini Thika Highway ilikuwa mahali pamoja. Njoo pwani imebadilika, nenda kule kwengine kumebadilika. Kwa hivyo rais tunamshukuru na tutamkumbuka hata akitoka mamlakani kwa yale ambayo wametufanyia kama wapwani. Wale waliomtangulia hawakuweka pwani mbele kama vile Rais Kenyatta ameweka.
Asante sana mheshimiwa. That is the voice of one of the local leader here in at the Coast General Hospital. An important thing to note, every patient patient seeking assistance in this facility, as long as you're registered under the NHIF cover, you are guaranteed free treatment. So this is a significant milestone, not only for the people of Mombasa, but the region as a whole. We are awaiting the arrival of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and we are giving you live coverage as soon as he lands in this grounds, and of course to witness this momentous occasion. But for right now, I hand it back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Njue Karisa, live from Mombasa, where any moment now we expect the head of state to officially launch the Coast General Hospital Cancer Center. Today, after yesterday, he launched a UHC in line with his Big Four agenda. Away from politics, that's something to commend the president for, because at least a lot of people at the coast will be held. But away from that, IEBC, I think we can have the statistics that they released yesterday in regards to the people who are targeted. 4.5 million people who are targeted for the second phase, the mass voter registration. We had slightly over 1 million, and Nairobi leading with slightly over 100,000. What is your take regarding what you saw in IEBC? Diego has mentioned something which he will tell us more about, of course, because a lot of people are complaining about IDs, but he brought up about a good spin that a lot of young people just wonder, why should I go and vote? You see the country, only 1,031,645. In the diaspora, 2,959 newly registered voters. Mike?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Let me slightly differ with Mheshimiwa and say, sometimes in an election, and truth be said, if we go back and revisit our history, the elections that have recorded the highest turnout are transition elections. It is funny enough, we are in a transition election and people are not feeling the need to vote. But truth be said, you know, politics, as much as truth be said that people vote for leaders expecting for change, I would go with that, but then in a very, very minor factor. There are very key things that have played to the figures which are there. More so, if you go now to the details of region per region and the expected by the IEBC. Now, if you look, one of the regions that has experienced the highest of voter apathy, you'll find that some of these regions, they have registered high numbers, but already they have high numbers. So even if they have high numbers, the expectation is still low.
You're talking about counties like Nairobi?
Yes, I'm talking about Nairobi, I'm talking about Mount Kenya region.
Yes.
What was expected and what is there is different. Now, we have to face this as truth as it is. The elections which have been there, the transition, now those are the figures there. We have Nairobi, 101, and bear in mind, Nairobi has registered voters 2 million. Okay? We only have an addition of 101. Kiambu County, we have nearly 1.something million voters. We only have an addition of 52. You see, though they are the ones which are the top, but then still, if you compare that with the percentage that was expected by the IEBC, it's low. Now, what informs this is what we are coming into. Now, we have to be very specific and talk about truth as it is. Our elections are normally mobilized, as Mheshimiwa has said, on tribal basis. We have to be very, very, very true on that. Now that the dynamics have changed, you look at 2002 and you look at 2013, there was a Mount Kenya candidate in each of those elections. Right now, we don't have one. So those people from that region, much as you want to mobilize them, and then that's why I'm saying the IEBC needs a voter education of people feeling that when you vote, you don't vote for somebody based on their ethnicity or what. You vote for somebody because you have an interest of changing your country to a better place to live. Unless the messaging is changed, these figures, they will continue this way. So because you go to those people, to the ground, and ask the people, why is it that truth be said? Well, somebody's going to tell you, well, I don't see any change, I don't see any change. But even the basis of mobilizing people in 2013 and 2002 was that we need to go rescue one of our own. And that was used to wind up people and they turn out in large numbers. Not only for registration, but even in what? In voting. Now, let me talk about something. These are the numbers as per the registered. We will come when the elections will be done, and now we look at voter turnout. Again, that will be a very big problem. Again, it's because of the messaging. Who do we tell our people? Why do people vote? If you were to take a random test of asking people, why would you vote in a general election? Why would you vote for a president? Why would you vote for a governor? Some people will tell you, I don't need to vote for this election because it has already been decided. Some people have already decided this election, why would I go to vote? Somebody will tell you, I don't need to vote because things are not changing. Things are not changing. But is it true that things are not changing? Or is it that somebody has informed that decision by the voter? An independent voter, does he or she know why they go to a ballot and why they vote? That one, I still take it back to the IEBC because it's the primary in charge of civic education. Then two, even the politicians themselves, those who are looking for these votes. On what basis are they doing? Do you tell the people to turn out to register?
Diego, tell us one of the methods is using actually to try and mobilize people.
Thank you.
We are just seeing big billboards, somebody saying register as a voter. But before Diego, take a spin on that, Wakili, kindly, is it quite risky and dangerous to try and amend any election law? Either it's the IEBC Act, or the Elections Act, or the Political Parties Act, just a few months to the general polls. Why now?
Now, after the aftermath of the 2007 elections, there was a number of commissions that came. There was a Kriegler commission, and there was a number of recommendations that were made, including a warning on the tinkering of the elections, of the election laws, months before the said election happens. Because when you have such changes, there is a sense in which people feel like there is a scheme, a designed scheme, an evil scheme that has been hatched somewhere and is being, people are trying to realize it through the amendment of laws, so that we do not have a respect for the rule of law, but we have a preferred way of stealing elections or running away from responsibilities through the rule by law, so that you change laws to fit certain situations. For example, you are seeing a situation where currently the law is recommending that the chairperson of the IBC, the chairperson of the IBC can look at the results that have since gotten to Bomas or the National Tallying Center, and then from the basis of the results that are there and the few that are remaining, if exercising is a discretion, and of course we are looking at the voter register, so that we see that if we have 10 stations, and out of the 10 stations we have 8 stations, and Mr. Mungai is leading, Wamboi here is trailing, but from the 8 polling stations that he is leading, and the 2 that are yet to surrender their results or submit their results, then the commissioner, the chairperson of the commission has the discretion to announce one as Mr. Mungai as a presidential elect on the basis of the results that have since come in. But you see, the amendment that is coming in is that it is removing those powers of the chairperson of the IBC to the extent that even as much as, you see, election is numbers. It's just about numbers. And numbers are just about making reasonable sense. So that 1 + 1, Mheshimiwa will tell you, is 2. And there is no way, in as much as we disagree probably on this platform or elsewhere, Mheshimiwa cannot have another result from 1 + 1 is 2. So that the IBC chairperson has looked at the results and told us that from what we are seeing, there is no likelihood that Mr. Wamboi will defeat Mr. Mungai.
Yes.
But now when they want to remove that, it is telling you of a sinister motive. That probably people who might have lost in the election will want, from what they have seen, they will want to bring, and I'm sorry to say, Adharakanivi. Yes. They will bring Adharakanivi. Yes. And probably all of a sudden, the person that was losing will be winning. Probably the same thing that we witnessed in 2007.
Yes.
People slept knowing hiki kimeenda, hiki kimechukuliwa hiki.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, when you're waking up in the morning, the person that had lost, all of a sudden, is the one who is winning. So you cannot create sense from illogical reasoning. Let us just make laws, because laws are simply as a result of logical reasoning.
Okay. Okay, Diego,
Yes.
perhaps you can dig in as well, looking at IEBC and okay, it has been blamed for not doing enough civic education, but Mike has mentioned something quite good, is that politicians are going out there seeking votes, but don't even tell the electorate why they should be voting in the first place.
Ben, before even I mention on something in regards to that, I think I agree with the Wakili here. That this emergence of changing laws a few months to election looks very personal. It looks like selfishness. It's not about people, it's not about Kenyans, it's not about good elections, but I guess some people are just trying to mess with us. And I think I do not agree on a few things in regards to the change of law. Number one, I do not agree that when you lose on nominations, you cannot win in the main election. So we've seen many people losing during nominations, going even as a private candidate or independent candidate, and they win the main elections. So having people that are losing on nominations not going forward, it's basically trying to kill democracy in a way. Number two, I also don't agree that during nominations, that you are the only people that are supposed to vote for any contestant. There are people within the same party. You must be a registered member of a certain party to be able to vote during nominations. I don't know, Wakili maybe is going to explain us more that why should that happen? Because again, every Kenyan has a right to choose. And perhaps I might not be of Jubilee party, for example, or ODM party, but if two people contest on a certain ticket, I am able to know this is better than this. So we should not discriminate on that basis. Going back to my brother, INBC target were based on statistics. They know how many people are eligible for or rather they have reached this age to get maybe a national identity card and then get voting card and then voting during elections. So, and the elections are not meant for only presidential candidates. They are meant from MCA, go to MP, you go to other elective leaders. And so I believe our people shouldn't be taught that you are not going for the you are not registering as a voter just for presidential purpose. You have your prerogative, or rather you have a reason why you should take a voting card to elect your local leader, the MCA, your MP, and going all the way to the president. So even in the Mount Kenya region, I want to urge them that they are supposed to take the voting cards, register as a voter, so that they are able to elect their leaders all the way to the president. But some of the ways that you are using as politicians, all events that you are attending, call it burial ceremonies, call it wedding ceremonies, churches, because we are visiting so many churches. We are also doing a few committees to assist you in elections. We are also meeting leaders, county leaders, national leaders, chiefs, and because we want peaceful election. So we are trying also to work together with them so that we can at least tell our people to register. In all these functions, one of the things we tell our people is that it is your right. Whether it's not me, you might even vote for my competitor, but it is your right to elect a leader of your choice, and you cannot do that without a voting card. It's true. Without a voting card, yes.
And still on the same, Diego, you ascribe to the Hustler Nation narrative, and you'll be seeking a seat via Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
If at all they will actually do a one single party ticket. But looking at since the earthquake, it's a few weeks since the earthquake, where Musalia Mudavadi and ANC leader and Ford Kenya leader joined forces with the UDA leader, who is the deputy president, and they have torn apart what the government has been doing for the last 10 years. Are they being honest and sincere? Looking at somebody like ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi talking about the government in which the DP is still the deputy president, and he has been in that government since 2013. All the bad things that are being mentioned that the government has done or hasn't done, and we still have the deputy president in that bandwagon.
Ben, and as we are new in Jerusalem, all of us are aware that after 2017 elections, the deputy president was sidelined. It's in the pub. Everyone knows actually. And after he was enshrined, of course, some of the duties were taken to one of the ministers. I don't have to go to details. And then they followed up with an handshake. And when the deputy president was going to talk about the government projects, he was told, you are tanga-tangaring. And then they said, let us tanga-tanga. So from that time to date, there has not been a good relationship between the two main principles of Jubilee. And, you know, what handshake did, it was its own form of earthquake that time. And so your earthquake must be counter.
It was the first earthquake.
Yes, yes. So you have to counter that with another handshake. And I'm happy the way the NDP did are taking on Musalia Mudavadi. Both of them are culprits of former premier.
Do you believe they are adding any substance to the new alliance?
Yes. Yes, that's a big alliance. Mudavadi is big in Western. Nobody can cheat you that Mudavadi is not big in Western, especially when they are together with these other Wetangula. Yes. Those are big forces in Western, and it has brought panic on the other side of alliance. And I can assure you, my brother, that many people will be joining the Kenya Kwanza alliance. Because the majority of Kenyans are afraid, especially politicians, that if I join them now, I'll be taken to court, I'll be done this, and finally you might even lose going through the law that you are convicted on this and that, so you are not eligible to go for the elections. Okay. So majority of Kenyans are coming on board on Kenya Kwanza. And I'm urging Kenyans that they should read the minds of the leaders. Fast. Yeah, they should read the minds of the leaders. Because if you look at what Musalia was speaking the other day, he was saying that we have worked with this man. I mean, they've worked with the Raila. Kalonzo has worked with the Raila. The DP, His Excellency, the Deputy President Ruto, has worked with the Raila. He has cheated them. If you can even betray a friend that comes and swears you in as a people's president, and you cannot even let that man back to Kenya, I mean, you become a liar.
Those are seasonal liar. Yes. We are seeing. And we can touch on the president. He is still the president, and is still the leader of the party, that is the ruling party, that is Jubilee. And he did talk about, yesterday, he said something that show all the indications on where he is leaning, or his presidential candidate is. And also we saw last week when they met with Jubilee MPs at State House, he said the party is still firmly intact. It's just that we have been on the ground working. And he said that he is still going to be the Jubilee party leader. And he's still the patron of Mount Kenya. Your take on that?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. I want to say that the season that we are having of politics is very interesting. More so when I try to think of it from an economic perspective, I'm trying to look at it and I'm seeing that the president, so far, if I'm genuine on economic analysis, tell you what, people don't realize about economics. President Kenyatta actually has done more economically than Mwai Kibaki did.
Really?
The problem is, the way you look at economics is very dynamic. Some of these people think that economics, and as people have been trained, especially by some people, it's just about giving people money. You see, economics of a country that is developing, there is what is called short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. These are the things that we have been questioning. What did Malaysia do? What did Singapore do? What did Japan do? Go and read the Doge plan of Japan. When it was in its implementation stage, those people were facing serious crisis. The citizens themselves had to make sacrifices for their posterity. It is very interesting that there are people who are preaching right now about the satisfaction of today without the thought of the country tomorrow. Back to what the president has said.
Yes.
We want to say this,
in a minute,
that the president himself is very clear. The reason as to why he has plunged himself into this, he has a legacy to protect. That legacy cannot be just given to anybody. That is why he's saying there is a preferred somebody in his own opinion
he's going to tell
who
us
can be able to secure that legacy.
1 minute each, kindly. Oh boy.
No, I'm not very good at commenting matters politics. Yes. I mean, I have a lot of fidelity to the law. But after all is said and done, I think largely it is our responsibility as citizens to consciously choose our leaders. Of course, we will not run away from the fact that we have our politics centered on our tribal linings, which is not a bad thing. I mean, tribes are not a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing to be a Kikuyu. It's a good thing. Yes, it's an identity. In any event, we should strive for these tribes to be one of our strengths, not our weaknesses. We should not be pushed to violence because we have sharp divisions or sharp opinions of the leaders that we have. Ultimately, after all is said and done, we have a country that will outlive all of us. So let us protect it, not only for ourselves, but for the future generations that will come.
Diego, wrap it up.
Yeah, President, President is a symbol of unity. And his legacy actually will be much better if he leaves Kenya to choose their own leaders.
Without mentioning anyone? Without
mentioning anyone. He has worked out his 10 years. He is a good man. I like him. He has done a lot of projects. So let him leave Kenyans to elect their leaders. Because as a symbol of unity, when you start now telling Kenyans this is not a good person, this is not a bad person, that is not the will of people. They don't need to be told who to choose. And that is democracy. Yeah.
Any last word as we wind up when it comes to the hate speech that we are seeing? Unfortunately, we are out of time.
I will actually request the Kenyans. I will actually request the Kenyans to do peaceful elections. And they choose the leader that you see is going to help the need that you have as a community, as a society, as a people. And let us avoid violence and the ones that can bring up to violence.
Thank you so much. That is Diego Ngoge Wilson, who is a governance and also an expert in matters marketing. He's also be seeking a seat in Daraka, the famous Daraka Nidhi that has so many votes. We have Wambui Shadrack, who is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for even clearing on the Office of the Ombudsman. We'll be following it up to know exactly what happens. And also we have a political economist who is Mike Mungai. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, in the second hour, you're looking at about matters healthcare when it comes to matters cancer. And the head of state, any moment now, he will be launching or opening the Coast General Referral Hospital Cancer Center, which he will be inaugurating today, which will actually started working on Friday when it was the World Cancer Day. We will have a lot in the second hour on matters health, universal health care, and cancer. Thank you for watching this first hour. Don't go away.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
I want you to promise that you'll return the land that your father stole from me to build his hotel.
I'm not going anywhere. You and I need to talk.
No! If I lose my son because of your foolish pride, you'll definitely lose me too. And I mean it.
Let me see it.
This is none of your business.
No,
Get your
I need
hands
to
off
see
this.
what this is. Why are you hiding it from me?
If you try to hurt me or my mother again, we'll deliver what's in that safe to the police. Is that clear?
I will never stop loving you. And do you know why?
Why?
Because you're the father I never had.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Forever and forever, until then crown another king. Hail Selassie, forever.
It's like I want 100 million. I found a good woman. I found a good woman.
Run, 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 just to protect my love.
I wanna spend all don't crawl anymore.
Welcome back to KBC News Check. In case you just joined us, my name is Njue, and we are looking at matters universal healthcare with the bias on matters cancer. Remember, on 4th of February, that was on Friday, we did celebrate the World Cancer Day with the theme Closing the Gap. And Kenya, as a sub-Saharan African country, we have been worst hit or hard hit by the cancer pandemic. And a few minutes from now, the head of state will be launching or opening up a new cancer center at the Coast General Hospital. We will be getting more details. Our reporter Njue Karisa is on standby. We also have the health CS there. We are waiting for the head of state, and we will witness all that today live. Remember also yesterday, the head of state did also launch the UHC, that is the universal health coverage in the country. And now I'm joined by Dr. Jesse Raduma, who is the senior resident oncologist at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Let us look at matters cancer. Daktari, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Looking at a couple of years back and now, the cancer situation in the country keeps on picking up pace. We can see more cancer cases than we used to have in the last 10 or 20 years. And we are now talking about the theme for this year was bridging the gap or closing the gap itself.
Yeah.
How is the situation in the Kenya?
Thank you very much for having me over. So it's true that we are seeing many cases of cancer right now. And we are not sure whether it's because we are screening more or we are diagnosing more, or it's because our lifestyle has changed or not. But as you've mentioned, we recently had the World Cancer Day. It was marked on 4th of February. And the theme was to close the care gap. So we all accept that there's a gap in cancer care. And when we talk about the theme, which was discussed in details on 4th of February, was that we have a big gap. There's a challenge in cancer care, and it's not only in Kenya, but it's world over. And yeah, we are seeing a high burden of cancer right now. We have our hands full. Yeah.
At the Kenyatta National Hospital, which are the most, the cancer cases that we have? We have mostly the breast cancer, we have the colon cancer, we have the throat, all these cancers, yeah? Which is the leading?
So we normally have a cancer registry that is marked the world over. We have what is called the Global Cancer Statistics. Now, according to the Global Cancer Statistics, the one that was released in 2020, the most common cancer in Kenya right now is breast cancer. We also have cervical cancer being the second most common cancer, prostate cancer, cancer of the esophagus, and the colorectal cancers. Those are the top 5 most common cancers in Kenya right now. Yeah.
And in referral hospitals that we have in the country, the president is launching a new one at the Coast General Hospital. How is the situation in counties when it comes to these centers?
So previously we've been overwhelmed at Kenyatta National Hospital, but I think the last 5 or so years we've seen attempts to make the counties to have cancer centers to try and bridge the gap and reduce the burden at the National Referral Hospital. The president launched a program, I think 5 years ago, which started to develop cancer centers across the counties. We've seen there's a cancer center that has been developed at the Coast General Hospital. There's a cancer center in Nakuru that is currently almost being completed. We have in Garissa a cancer center that is also coming up. And there are many small cancer centers across the counties that are being developed so as to try and bridge this gap and reduce the burden of cancer cases we're seeing in Kenyatta National Hospital.
And one of the issues that we have when it comes, or when you mention cancer in Kenya, is that we have a problem of late diagnostics, such that any cancer that is taken to the hospital, most of the cancer cases in hospitals are in stage 3 or stage 4. How do we close this gap? We're talking about closing the gap. How do we close this gap, the information gap, so that we may have early diagnostics, which may lead also to early detection and treatment?
So I think the reason why we are getting late cancer diagnosis is because cancer, like any other disease, presents with symptoms that are of daily occurrences. You'll get pain, you will get fever, you'll get chills. These are some of the symptoms that are associated with common infections like malaria. For people who have cancer of the lung, will present with symptoms like those of TB. So the patients are first seen in the peripheral facilities, and they're treated for common ailments, which is taking a lot of time before they actually get a diagnosis of cancer. So what we are doing right now is the training programs across the country that are trying to sensitize healthcare workers and also sensitize the public to be aware of some of these symptoms that are associated with cancer. Remember, it is in the health referral facilities, in the small referral facilities in the country, where this patient will go first. So it is important that sensitization is done across the country, especially to those healthcare workers who are sitting within the health dispensaries, the county level 4s and level 5 hospitals. When we come to the national level, I think the government has been working on initiatives to have more healthcare workers be trained to be specialists in this cancer field, so as to reduce this burden that is currently plaguing our country. Yeah.
And something that I read in one of the medical journals is that some countries or some communities in Africa associate cancer with witchcraft.
Okay.
How do we get this stereotype out? Because in major towns and big towns, you may know all about cancer, but where this information doesn't get there, there's a lot of stereotypes as to what is ailing someone. People even talk about witchcraft.
Okay, so thank you very much. If you look at what the WHO has outlined as the barriers to cancer care that is currently hindering patients from getting treatment, you realize that there are many facets to the discrimination that patients are facing across the country. And this varies from gender norms and discrimination, where the females are stigmatized and ostracized to talk about cervical cancer because of how it presents, to talk about the breast cancer because of the implications behind it. We get men being afraid to come to the hospital, for instance, for screening for prostate cancer because of the implication thereafter. So some of these are some of the things that the WHO set out in the next 3 years to address, to close the gap. Culture plays a big part in healthcare management because, of course, the different regions have different beliefs and practices that will determine their health-seeking behavior. So I think we also need to think about ways in which we incorporate these cultural facets into our programs that try to screen for some of these diseases. Before I treat a patient, I need to understand the holistic component of the patient in terms of where the patient comes from, what the patient believes in, what the patient values, before I start giving him what I'm thinking about in terms of management. So we need to incorporate that cultural aspect into all these things that we're trying to do to close the gap. Yeah.
For a moment, let's focus on the cost. The cost of cancer treatment in the country, just like a lot of African countries, is quite high as compared to other nations. Of course, there are other factors that play out. But how do we make cancer treatment affordable? So any mwananchi, at least the president is launching did launch the UHC yesterday, which is going to help a long way in alleviating cases of cancer in the country.
So when we talk about universal health care, we are talking about coverage for all the citizens of this country. We pull our resources together so that any person can walk anywhere for treatment, despite whatever economic background they come from. So healthcare in the country has been costly, not just cancer care, and this is because of the limited resources that are available. So I believe for us to close the gap, we need to increase our infrastructural development, we need to increase our healthcare personnel, and we need to bring this healthcare closer to the common mwananchi wherever they are. If you have 1 or 2 facilities treating cancer patients in the country, then of course the cost implication will be higher. But we have 40 or 50 cancer centers across the country, then it's easier for the common mwananchi to access treatment and also to become more affordable. So I think with the advent of the universal healthcare, we are trying to actually reduce some of these implications associated with cancer care in terms of what comes from the patient's pocket. And I think my experience is that the National Hospital Insurance Fund has come in handy for these patients, actually the cancer patients. We've seen what NHIF has done in their cancer care. And I believe if we can invest more in having a universal coverage for the patients, then we will actually be able to reach more patients than we are doing currently.
Kenyatta being one of the biggest hospitals in the region and is expected to cater for cancer cases using the NHIF card. What exactly, for the common mwananchi out there, what exactly will it cover and what is the process? Because we have seen some hospitals denying to offer some services because of the NHIF card.
So I think NHIF comes in packages. There's what is a package for common mwananchi, there's what is a package for, it depends on your contribution towards the scheme. And then again, it's also dependent on the hospital where you're going to use the scheme. I think the coverage for the private hospitals is not the same as what is covered in the public hospitals. But from a KNH point of view, I think when the patients come in with the NHIF coverage, they're able to access treatment, get chemotherapy, they're able to get radiotherapy services, they're also able to get imaging services. Yeah.
Do we have oncology centers in all the counties, on all the level 5 hospitals? Or is it a requirement that we have an oncology center?
So ideally, we should be having oncology centers across all the counties, but that is not the point right now. And I think the government is trying to bridge the gap by enabling these other counties to be able to set up cancer centers. I think it's being done in phases. We've actually talked about Nakuru, Mombasa, and Garissa counties that are coming up as being vibrant areas. There's cancer centers in Nyeri, Nakuru, Embu, among others, although they are still coming up.
Work in progress.
Yeah, so I think the government is trying to bridge the gap, and ideally we should be able to have cancer centers across the country. Yeah.
We are talking about closing the gap, and I'm still on the information part, because the more you know, the more you are able to get help.
Yeah.
And how do we bridge the gap of information and sensitizing people? We haven't seen a lot of campaigns on matters cancer. Cancer is what, the fourth disease that is killing a lot of people in the country. That is according to CS Kagwe on Friday. And a lot of Kenyans don't know even where to start, perhaps to where to go. How do we help these people?
So I think by talking about it, like we are doing right now, we are spreading a message out there. The print media, the social media, the campaigns are supposed to help us spread the word out there for the common mwananchi. I think right now we've seen very many prominent people getting cancers, and people are now talking about cancer. And I think it's a good way to take the opportunity to spread the word out there. So when we talk about screening services, I think we need to have screening services across the country. There are basically like 4 major cancers that can be screened and make a difference in terms of treatment. And
which
there are
among, for the sake of our audience?
So the 4 common cancers that can be screened and make a difference in the cancer care include breast cancer, cervical cancer, colorectal cancers, and lung cancers. And these cancers can be screened anywhere across the country and make a difference in terms of the outcome of patient care. So I think it's a multifaceted approach where we need to focus on what we are doing in terms of the healthcare development, in terms of the personnel. We need to focus on what we are doing in terms of the media, what information are we spreading out there. We also need to focus on what, as an individual, you are doing, because all of us have a role to play. And if you look at what the WHO was advising in the closing care gap, is that the individuals, the common mwananchi, have to play a big part in closing the gap by demanding for us to have the infrastructures to be able to do some of these things that we are saying in terms of screening, diagnosis, prevention, and treatment. So if, as taxpayers, we don't demand for cancer centers nearby, we don't demand for presence of healthcare workers who are qualified to help us screen for these cancers, then we're also contributing to the challenge we are facing.
Indeed, and talking about the workers who are involved in the whole cancer treatment, the country doesn't have enough oncologists because we have an issue with doctors as a whole, leave alone oncologists. What else can we do to actualize this? Because at the end of the day, even if we have a cancer center in each of the 47 counties, but we do not have the oncologist, we will have an issue.
Okay, so there are many doctors currently on training to be a specialist in different fields within the oncology. And I think the government has sponsored so many students right now on training to try and close the gap. We can still do more, and we can still encourage more healthcare workers to undergo training for the same. I think we need to come up with policies that would make it easier for health workers to go for additional training so as to come and bridge the gap that exists between the number of doctors versus the number of patients.
Yes, because we've been having that difference.
Yeah, it's been a big problem across all the specialties, not just cancer care.
Yes, and still on the doctors, we had some specialists from Cuba. Were there some oncologists, and are they still around?
I think the ones I interacted with were renal physicians. I'm not sure whether they were oncologists. I can't speak to that.
I'm talking about KNH. Do you have some more help from outside?
In our department, we don't have.
All the oncologists from the Kenyatta National Hospital are from Kenya?
Kenyans who are trained within and without the country. So we have doctors who have trained outside the country, and we also have doctors in training within the country.
Then we have a lot of stigma when we talk about cancer. A lot of people don't even want to come out and say that I have cancer. I've gone to the hospital and I've been diagnosed with cancer. It's only during the last days of life that is when people talk about cancer, which does not help much in bridging the gap as we are talking about in the theme.
Yeah, so stigma is a big problem, and stigma comes from the societal expectations and the cultural beliefs. Now we go back to that. Like I think one of the commonest cases is where you have a man having breast cancer. You see, when you have a man having breast cancer, to come to the clinic where women are coming for assessment for breast cancer becomes a problem. Because we don't associate men to be having breast cancer. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing, and I think we need to come out and speak freely. I know that majority of the cancers can be cured actually if we do a diagnosis early, if we go for regular screening, and if we come out to take up some of these facilities that are available to us. We know that right now we are talking about HPV vaccination to prevent cervical cancer. We are talking about screening for cervical cancer using the pap smears, which is available across the country. We are talking about breast self-examination, which can be done by the patient themselves. Also, clinical breast exam can be done by any doctor across the facility. But these things will not take up if we cannot come out as individuals and go to access these facilities.
And looking at 20 years ago and now, as we have talked about in the statistics, the statistics are alarming. The lifestyle diseases are much to blame when it comes to some of these cancers that we are witnessing. Perhaps you can touch on lifestyle diseases that we are having that are contributing towards the cancers that we have in the country.
So when you talk about lifestyle diseases, we talk about things like diabetes, hypertension, cancer is one of them. And when you talk about lifestyle, we're talking about our behavior as individuals, what we are practicing. And around 85% of cancer is actually caused by environmental factors, which include our lifestyle behaviors. When you talk about lifestyle, we're talking about alcohol use, smoking, physical inactivity, obesity, or being overweight. We talk about our diet choices. So some of these things are actually contributing to the development of not only cancer, but also cardiovascular disorders. When we talk about non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension. So I think our behaviors have really changed the past couple of years because I think we have now adopted more of a westernized lifestyle. We are able to access some of these vices that we are saying are contributing to development of cancer. Yeah, and it's a challenge right now.
Kenyans, of course, as Kenyans, we need to make that clarion call so that we may change our lifestyle. As an oncologist, what would you suggest?
The biggest player here is an individual. Yeah, charity will begin at home.
Yes.
Yeah, what you do to prevent some of these cancers and lifestyle diseases is what you do daily. What kind of food do you take? Do you engage in physical activity? Do you do exercises? Do you smoke too much? Do you take alcohol excessively? So these things are things that are done at a personal level. We can say that they contribute and they're dangerous and all that, but it boils down to an individual. Yeah.
And funding for cancer research, when it comes to research, when it comes to diagnosis, and also when it comes to the treatment itself. How is the situation here in Kenya? Because I have seen a lot of organizations, including the WHO, who are partnering with hospitals so that they may ensure that not only do they have the rightful equipment, they actually try as much as possible to work together when it comes to the screening and the diagnostic and also the treatment.
So cancer care is a multi-faceted approach that involves multiple players, and I think it involves both the public and private partnerships and the NGOs that are coming in. The funding for research currently, we can do better. We need to do more local research to improve our local care. I think most of the research that we are using, or the results of research that we are using...
Doc, let me, just a minute. We are now crossing over to the Treasury buildings where Devolution CS Charles Keter is officially resigning. Remember, today is the deadline for civil servants. Let's first of all listen in.
5 of the Elections Act, holders of the public office who wish to contest for any elective post are required to resign from office at least 6 months before the date of election. I have today tendered my resignation to His Excellency, the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces. I'm also complying with a circular which was issued by the Head of Public Service last week, dated January 28, 2022, requiring all state and public officers who are not exempted by the provisions of the Election Act 2011 from resigning from their offices to vacate their offices on or before today, Tuesday, 8th of February 2022. I wish to sincerely thank His Excellency the President for according me an opportunity to serve in his cabinet since 2015. When he nominated me to join his government. With a lot of humility, I want to reiterate my appreciation to the President for the honor bestowed on me. With diligence, commitment, and determination, I serve as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum until 2018, when I was reappointed to the energy portfolio. During my tenure, tremendous increase electricity access over 75% was realized. There was also generation rose to 2,912 megawatts, and the construction of the high voltage transmission lines were recorded for the last 9 years. Here at the Ministry of Devolution, where I have served since October last year, we have laid down groundwork for the review of laws to improve devolution in Kenya and support from donors. I want to thank my teams as per the Ministry of Energy for the great milestone, and here at the Ministry of Devolution for the good work and support they have extended to me. Today, however, I'm resigning from my office in government to focus my energy on contesting for the seat of governor of the county, the great county of Kericho in August 2022 elections. I have the vision and commitment and will pursue a development agenda that will grow the economy of the great county of Kericho in improving the livelihood of my community and transform Kericho to become a model of success. My leadership skills at the cabinet level, my long political experience and vast knowledge of my people and home places me in the best position to lead the transformation of the Kericho County into a center of devolved success. Thank you so much. That is the end of my story. Any question? I think as I introduce the MP, I know the MP for Inamoi, Honorable Sylvanus Maritime, is the MP for Inamoi. My MP.
That has been Devolution CS Charles Keter, who has officially resigned as Devolution CS in line with the government deadline of today. We are expecting more civil servants to be resigning today, being the deadline. From tomorrow, if you're seeking any elective position, you should have resigned, the deadline being today. He has talked about some milestone. Of course, when he was Energy CS, he has talked about actualizing the head of state's 75% coverage of electricity in the country, and has also laid down, according to his word, laid down grounds for the changing of devolution laws here in the country. He will be seeking the Kericho gubernatorial seat come August 9th this year. We will be getting much more detailed version of that event in our subsequent bulletin. And in case you just joined us, we are discussing matters cancer. Why are we doing that? On 4th of this month, we did commemorate World Cancer Day with a theme, closing the gap. And here we are actually trying to close that gap in this discussion. And also the universal health care that was launched by the head of state yesterday. And any moment now, the head of state is expected at the Coast General Referral Hospital, where he is opening up a cancer center, which will be catering for people in the coastal region, which is quite a breath of fresh air when it comes to that matter. And I'm joined by an oncologist. Yes, we have Dr. Jesse Raduma, who is the senior resident radiation oncologist at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Dr. Apologies, when we crossed over to the Treasury building, you were talking about funding of cancer research and the treatment itself from other partners. How has that been?
Yeah, so I was telling you actually that the funding for research, we are not doing that quite well, because most of our treatment protocols are based on research that have been done outside the country. I think we need more partnerships with private sectors and also the NGOs to come in and also do more in terms of funding for cancer research, for development of local protocols. And I think the Ministry of Health has come out and actually done something about having national protocols within the country. And if you go to their website, there's a national cancer guideline that was developed, I think, in 2014. I was revised in 2019. They're also working on radiotherapy protocols. So in terms of closing the care gap in within the healthcare fraternity, the Ministry of Health is doing a lot of work in that. What we need to do more funding in research, and we need to build more relationship with the private and the sectors and the NGOs.
Actually, that was supposed to be my next question, where you're talking about funding, but I would like you working at one of the biggest referral hospitals in the region, the funding or the health budget, the budget that goes towards cancer treatment in the country, is it enough?
Honestly, it's not enough. We still have a lot of challenges providing these facilities. And I think you will see now the KMPDC coming out every other time complaining about the funding to the health sector. I think we can still increase the budget for health care within the country so that we are able to not only have many cancer centers within the country, but also able to attract qualified healthcare professionals within the public sector. Yeah.
Yes, and there's something I've been able to pick up from this discussion is that there's a lot that we need to do when it comes to cancer treatment in the country, and a lot has been said about the health budget, the health partnerships. But there was an idea of setting up a health commission. Of course, it was in the BBI, but that's a noble cause because there's something that the health and the medics have been talking about. We need our own commission. Do you think that the commission could perhaps address some of the challenges that we're experiencing as we try to close the care gap?
I think when you talk about Health Service Commission, it's more about a personnel issue, management of healthcare workers, and having a central point where all matters healthcare workers can be addressed. I think this one has been driven so far with the development of devolution and existence of multiple wrangles within the health sector involving the different counties. So we've seen that there have been multiple strikes involving the different counties where the healthcare workers are continually going on strike. And I think this has been interrupting service provision. So Health Service Commission basically is supposed to address some of these challenges that are facing healthcare workers. But when it comes to cancer management, it's more of a focus of the national government and the ministry in conjunction with the devolved governments. So this is a matter of resources and availing resources to train individuals, availing resources to instill or develop these infrastructures within the national level and also at the county levels. Yeah, and I think that is a different preserve, not about the Health Service Commission. Yeah.
Okay. And our viewers will bear me witness that you've had either a relative or a friend or a colleague who has had cancer. And we know very well that the cost of treatment in the country is quite exorbitant. And looking at the private, without mentioning any, looking at the private institutions that are offering cancer treatment, the prices are off the charts. You have to do harambes and you lobby for some money. And looking at the cost in public hospital, in as much as it's still high, we can bring it down. But the private centers are actually extorting Kenyans because of this, because of cancer.
I think...
And I believe they are using the same equipment and the same personnel.
So cancer care is basically an expensive affair. And it costs hundreds and thousands of shillings across the board. What I would advise our patients is we should focus on the journey. It's not a one-time treatment. It's more of a marathon. And it's going to cost a lot of money throughout the whole treatment. So the focus should be, as we have done, as the president is doing, is having a universal health coverage that is going to help us burden some of these costs. And also at an individual level, we need to have the National Hospital Insurance Fund scheme. We need to have insurance covers so that for any eventuality that we develop a cancer, these insurance schemes will come in handy. And the cost of cancer is actually exorbitant. And you know, when you say about the public hospitals having a lower cost than the private, it's because it's subsidized. Someone is helping us to cater for these costs. Yeah.
And how is the government, the UHC supposed to be kicking in any moment from now? As we speak, what is the current situation at the KNH?
So UHC, there was a pilot project, I think in Machakos County and some other counties that started to pilot the project. And I've seen in Kenyatta patients from Machakos County coming with a universal health coverage and getting treatment. So actually it's a doable thing, and I think Kenya should embrace it.
100%, so long as you have your NHIF and you're servicing it well, you're supposed to get that treatment and just leave.
Exactly, it's happening right now. Yeah.
It's a big relief for Kenyans, but right now, the numbers themselves, the capacity, Do we really have that capacity? Because there are some people who don't go to the hospital because of the cost themselves, and they've decided perhaps to use other means. But a lot of people are bound to come up for both screening and the treatment itself. Will we be able to handle the numbers?
So I want to take you back a few years ago.
Yes.
You know, a few years ago, you'd come to Kenyatta for radiotherapy services, and you'd be told you come back after 6 months to start treatment, because the numbers are overwhelming. Yeah, and there were only few doctors and there was only 1 or 2 machines that were working. Some patients would cross the border to go to Uganda, Mulago Hospital, to access radiotherapy services. But right now, you come to Kenyatta and patients have started treatment within 1 or 2 weeks, which means that the facilities have been provided. The development of new cancer centers across the country, both public and private, have also helped us to burden some of these large numbers. And I think with the development of the Coast General Cancer Center, we also expect the workload within Kenyatta and other centers within Nairobi to be reduced. Yeah.
Indeed, and for now, let's first of all now cross over to Mombasa. Okay, my director informs me that that clip isn't ready yet. We'll be crossing over. Remember, the head of state is supposed to be officially launching the cancer center at the Coast General Hospital. Will be getting a word with the deputy CEO as soon as that feed is ready. We will be getting back to that. But just in case you joined us, we are with one of the senior doctors when it comes to matters cancer at the Kenyatta National Hospital, who is also helping us to know exactly what cancer is, what types of cancers we have in the country, and of course, early detection is the key towards the 100% cure for cancer, earlier detection. Legislation, the laws that we have, this is not the cancer cases that we are experiencing now. We were not experiencing these kinds of cases 30 years back or 20 years back. So the legislation has more or less quite stayed the same. Do you think perhaps we need to have some more legislation, perhaps that will make counties ensure that they have an oncology center and they prioritize cancer treatment? Because as we speak, cancer is tearing into many countries in sub-Saharan Africa.
So I think for any success to be achieved in cancer care, of course, we must have policies that will help us define what we want to achieve as a country. And this is where the legislations and the legislators have to come in to help us set up some of the bare minimums that at least should be implemented across the country, so as to reduce some of the challenges that the patients are actually experiencing. Remember, the WHO also highlighted the rural-urban divide as one of the challenges that actually interfere with cancer care in across the world. And when you talk about rural-urban divide, we mean that more resources go to the urban centers, and we have more cancer centers or more facilities or health facilities coming up within the urban centers and neglecting the rural areas. And I think with the devolution, we need to decentralize that so that we have more health facilities and infrastructures coming around the common mwananchi in the counties, so as to at least bridge the gap. Yeah, and that is where now policies come in under legislation, because we know without political goodwill, we cannot close the gap.
Indeed. Yeah. And from Dr. Aduma right here in studio to another doctor, Dr. Wanjiru Koril, who is Deputy CEO, Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital. She is being engaged by one of us, Njue Karisa in Mombasa, so that we may know exactly more about that center that is being officially launched by the head of state any moment now. And as soon as that is ready, we will be crossing over to Mombasa so that we may have a look at the oncology center being launched just a few days after we commemorated World Cancer Day on Friday with the CS Mutahi Kagwe. They are talking about we should step up early diagnosis so that we may be able to nip it before it causes more damage in the country. Let's now cross over Njue with the Deputy CEO, Coast Teaching and Referral Hospital. So over to you, Njue. Hear me? As we wait for that live feed, as we had talked about on some of the issues that are causing a lot of issues when it comes to cancer in the country, as Doc has alluded to, here is our lifestyle. Do you eat well? Do you? Okay, Njue?
Started yesterday. Today he will be commissioning this new regional cancer treatment center that is expected to lessen the burden for the residents here in Mombasa County as well as the region as a whole in terms of the financial burden when it comes to cancer treatment. And today I'm joined, of course, by the Deputy CEO of the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital, Dr. Korir, just to give us an overview of how monumentous this facility is for the residents of Mombasa as well as the region, the coastal region. Karibu sana. Just take a step to me. Just tell us, the opening of this can't come at a better time as this. How has the journey been for the cancer patients? And give us just a brief statistics as to how many patients you attend to, the Coast General Hospital attends to each year, so that many cancer patients can be able to fight this deadly disease.
Thank you very much. Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital Cancer Center started in 2010. It was a journey that was conceived by Dr. Kandwala and Dr. Getambo. It started in our Ishmael Rahimtullah ward with 2 beds. In 2013, an idea was conceived to set up another cancer center, a chemotherapy center, which is currently 12 bed, and it is running just behind this building. And then in 2019, we started the journey of creating this radiotherapy unit. This unit is capable of servicing our 6,500 patients that we see every year. The benefit that it brings to our treatment is more than 400 patients are sent to Nairobi every month for further radiotherapy treatment and other forms of treatment. So having this unit here helps us to complete the continuum of care for cancer treatment in the region. And by the region, I mean all the counties around Mombasa and even across international borders. So it couldn't have come at a better time, remembering that cancer is the 3rd highest cause of morbidity and mortality in our country and in the world at large.
We were here on Friday to witness the Cancer Day, and the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Senator Kagwe, was also here, and he was talking about, he heard about the survivor talking about the financial constraint. Now, a big plus with this treatment center, I'm told that once you walk in with an NHIF card, you can get any treatment for free. Is that true? And how will it lessen the burdens for the residents here?
Yes, that is very true. And yes, our Senator Mutahi Kagwe, the CS for Health, mentioned that the additional benefit of having this center here is not only the cost covered by NHIF, but even the cost of travel, the cost of accommodation, the psychological cost of treatment away from family. Now, patients will be being managed around their family, around the area they are used to. There is also that cost, the psychosocial cost of it, that having this unit here will help lessen for the cancer patients, their caregivers, and their families at large.
Finally, also the governor that day talked about medical tourism. How's that about?
Oh, that's fantastic. It's actually very interesting, and they also mentioned it yesterday during the healthcare workers conference, that we are seeing referrals coming from the private sector to the public sector. It wouldn't have come at a better time. We have a lot of medical tourism happening from upcountry to the coastal region, from neighboring counties and from neighboring countries. We are so grateful to be at the center of that currently.
Thank you so much, Dr. Korir. We are at the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital, and today President Uhuru Kenyatta, we're still awaiting his arrival. He will commission this regional cancer treatment center that, of course, will host 6,500 cancer patients that visit the referral hospital annually. This is a momentous occasion. It is a journey, as the doctor has put it, that started a long time ago. One thing to note is that this will lessen the financial burden for many cancer patients that are visiting this facility. So we're still waiting for the arrival of the head of state. Once he's here, we're giving you live coverage from this grounds, the Coast General Hospital, and how he will officiate and how he will address the residents who are thronged here anxiously for his arrival. Back to you, Ben Njue.
Thank you so much, Njue Karisa, live from the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital, there with the Deputy CEO of that hospital, that is Dr. Wanjiru Korir. There, a big step in alleviating the cancer suffering of the coastal region. And as we had talked about with Doc here, these centers are alleviating, at least in regional. We have one that will be launched in Garissa in a while. We have one now in Mombasa.
Nakuru.
We have Nakuru. We also have private, we have the Texas Center. We have private hospitals who are also offering cancer treatment in the country. So for the coast, 6,500 people will be attended to, and the CEO there has talked about 400. They were referring 400 people every month to your hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital. So you can tell us how the traffic was.
Yeah, we see so many patients from the coast region at large, and I think if you put it into perspective, think about someone coming from a different location to come and look for accommodation in Nairobi, to come and look for a treatment in Nairobi. So this person is not only going to spend money on treatment, but also daily expenses within the city that he's never been to. So if you look at that, then it becomes a very huge burden to the patient in terms of the cost implication. And I think, like you've said, it's a momentous occasion for us that the coast region is now able to relieve the burden to the patients themselves and also to KNH as a facility. Yeah.
And looking at, we've talked about the last 5 years, and now we have made tremendous steps, including the cost of cancer treatment. In a rough estimate, how far low have we now come in terms of treating and managing cancer in the country?
So I think just like in any other business, supply and demand plays a big issue in regulating the cost. I think in the past 5 or 10 years, we've seen many cancer centers coming up, and this has resulted in the cost of care coming down. And I think when you talk about radiotherapy services, the ranges now are between 4,000 to 6,000, unlike previously where we could pay for maybe one session for around 8,000 to 11,000, 12,000. Yeah. So with the increased number of facilities, patients are getting options. The cost is coming down. And I think also with now facilities coming up in the peripheries, we also now have to lessen the cost of transportation, accommodation, getting meals in a town that you're not used to. Yeah.
You've said that Kenyatta National Hospital has 3 centers.
We have 3 radiotherapy machines in Kenyatta National Hospital. We have so many clinics running in the Kenyatta National Hospital. We have a clinic that is run by the medical oncologist. We have clinics running by the radiation oncologist. We have clinics running by the gyne oncologist. We have clinics running by the surgical oncologist. Yeah, so there are many clinics within Kenyatta.
But still, a lot of patients are coming to the hospital. You've talked about there's a time you could have told a patient to come after 6 months. Right now, what is the duration of waiting?
So the waiting time has significantly reduced, and we are trying to actually start treatment within 1 to 2 weeks of first contact. For chemotherapy, you are starting treatment almost immediately. Yeah, you come in, if you have everything that is required, you're ready to start treatment. For radiotherapy services, there's a lot of processes involved, but we try to make the treatment within 2 weeks. Yeah.
And for private citizens, there are some people who will not have a cover. There are some people who have not subscribed. We subscribed with the NHIF. They just come, they are just walk-ins. How is the cost of treatment for them? Because at least NHIF will have subsidized some of the costs, and some people who have other insurance have already catered for that.
So KNH is a national hospital that is running an open door policy. We don't categorize patients as either being private or public. It's a public facility, so every patient who walks in will get care. In terms of cost, we don't have a charge for private patients, and we don't have a charge for public patients. I think the cost cuts across for all the patients. Yeah. So when you talk about subsidies, what the government sends to the national hospital, not to an individual's pocket. Yeah.
Being a referral institution that has helped a lot of Kenyans and people from the region, have you seen a lot of people coming from other countries seeking treatment at the center?
Yes, we see patients coming in from outside the country actually coming to seek treatment in Kenyatta National Hospital. We see patients coming from Rwanda, we see patients coming from Uganda, we see patients coming from Tanzania. Yeah.
But still the cost is a little bit high compared to other countries like India, or it's because of the infrastructure that they have made already?
So I think it's about the infrastructure. Yeah, like I said, supply and demand. If we increase the centers, of course, the cost will become limited. Yeah, so I think with the mushrooming of many centers right now, with the presence of large cancer centers like the Coast General, Nakuru, Eldoret, we expect the cost also to come down.
Okay, as we wind up, what would you like to tell Kenyans? Because some things that we've talked about here are some things that you can do yourself, like your lifestyle audit.
So actually, if you take your time and go through the WHO recommendation for the bridging the cancer gap, the main focus is individual. You as a person, you have the capacity to change your lifestyle. You have your capacity to seek screening services. You have the capacity to seek preventive measures. And when you talk about preventive measures, you can start reducing your intake of alcohol or smoking, cigarette cessation. You can talk about physically being active. You can watch what you are eating. You can be a person who is aggressive in taking care of themselves. Then also, when we come to the individual, you still have to demand from your government the services that you want. If you are working in a marginalized region where there are no infrastructures, as a group, you need to demand from the government to have some of these services brought down to your level. So it is on an individual level that a lot can change. Yeah.
Indeed, Dr. Jesse Raduma, thank you so much for making time, and thank you so much for actually your insight that we are able at least to understand more about this lifestyle disease that is actually has claimed a lot of Kenyans. And as the good doc has said, kindly look at your lifestyle. Do a lifestyle audit of your health on what you eat, what you drink, and what you do. The electronic devices have made us a little bit dull and also a little bit lazy. So watch what you eat. We say you are what you eat. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Susan Thuku is our sign language interpreter for this show, and as we wind up, I'm giving rise to Zainab, who will tell us what is happening in the news in Kurunzi Mashinani. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue this conversation on our social media spaces. Doc? Thank you.
Nikifa kama leo, Kate hawezi kusahaulika.
You naughty girl. Just chunga asiyetoka kajua ukweli.
Hakika kabisa na yale ambao unaniambia saizi.
Unadhani mimi naweza kudanganya kwa hilo?
Una hakika nikiingia akilini mwako sitaona lolote?
Ama kweli wewe ni damu yangu?
Kwani uko na tashwishi na hilo?
Alafu ona.
Naona laana babangu ishakuingia wewe.
I want you to promise that you'll return the land that your father stole from me to build his hotel.
I'm not going anywhere.